Hi, my name is Erin. I'm the Chief Quality and Operations Officer at Trilogy Care. Thank you for joining us for the next instalment on our Confusion to Clarity series around support at home. Today, I'm joined by our General Manager of Compliance and Assurance, Zoe Judd. Thank you for being here, Zoe.
Thanks for having me, Erin.
And Zoe will be answering some key questions that have been raised from our suppliers and business partners around the transition to the new program. Now, Zoe, we obviously have a team working really hard on the client side of the transition, but also important is the transition for our suppliers and business partners.
Yes.
Your team are working very hard on what the move from the home care package program to the support at home program means in practice for our suppliers and those providing care to our clients. What we're seeing is obviously a much higher level requirement for accuracy, transparency, itemisation in invoicing is a big thing, and essential separation of service types, because now that affects every client's out-of-pocket costs associated with the delivery of care. So one of our main questions is, why are there suddenly so many rules around itemisation? That wasn't really a focus under the home care package program.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the change from the home care package program to support at home, we are seeing those new requirements to sort of itemise your services on your invoice. That's because with support at home, we now have a set list of approved service types, and that aligns with our client's notice of decision. So we really need to make sure that we're aligning our invoices, our budgets, and our care plans all in one. So that's why that itemisation is so important now. And like you said before, with the contributions that are associated with those service types, the bundling of those really makes it imperative to separate out so that we don't have the incorrect contribution associated with a charge.
That's right, Zoe. The contributions being based on the service categories, we're seeing a lot of confusion about support workers that might be attending a client's home and providing both domestic assistance and social support. As an example, that's a really common one that we see. And they're actually two different contribution categories. So what could happen is the client is charged fully for that service's domestic assistance and paying more out of their own pocket. Whereas if that's separated into the social support component and domestic assistance component, that will actually reduce the fees to that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So we understand that might bring a little bit of confusion because, in a supplier's eyes, they're going there for the singular shift. That's why they're including all of those services in that line item. But we really need you to separate them out and just provide that clarity and that transparency so we can make sure that the contributions are assigned correctly.
The next question that we have from our suppliers is, why can't I bill transport per kilometre anymore if I'm transporting a client?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously the change to transport services is a significant one, moving from home care package to support at home. So what we're seeing now is that there's two types of transport that can be invoiced for, and that's direct and indirect. So direct transport means that you've taken a client in your car as a support worker from point A to point B. And an indirect transport charge refers to services provided by a taxi or a cab. So then when we look at travel, so travel to and from a client's home that a support worker used to be able to bill for, we now see that we can no longer claim that service. So what that means is that our suppliers need to include those costs associated with the care into their hourly rate. So, if they're doing a social support service or domestic assistance and that involves driving to or from a client's home, they need to make sure that those hourly rates encompass all of the associated costs.
That's right, Zoe. And there is a different service as well, which is not actually even called transport, which is accompanied activities.
Yes.
So that may be where a support worker is taking a client to participate in an activity, such as going to the shops to do some grocery shopping, and that hourly rate for that service must include that travel as well. It can't be charged by the kilometre. That is something the government have been very strict on. It's not a Trilogy Care rule. The intention of the new policy is that the price that's quoted for a service is inclusive of all of the related charges, and there's no surprises. So really important for our clients that that travel is included in the hourly rate that's quoted for the service. Now, Zoe, why are invoices being rejected if the client name is slightly different or even just spelt differently?
Yep, so that's a really important one for our suppliers to get right, so that they can be paid for their work. And that's because our clients may have the same first or even the same last name. So we need to make sure that we have both of those spelled correctly and we're not missing a last name or missing a first name. And if you do have the client's address, just include that as well on your invoice. And that ensures that we can bill the correct client's package. And with these new contributions that are being introduced, it's very important that we're billing the right client for the service.
Absolutely, Zoe. I know in the works that I've done in invoicing and client files, I think the most common name we've got in excess of 20 plus records with the same first and last name. So some of those are even in the same suburb. So it's really important we have as much information as possible on the invoices so that we can connect it to the right client, pay it from the right package. Zoe, what should suppliers do if their ABN or GST details have changed?
Yep, so if any of their business information has changed, please reach out to our compliance team. They'll be able to update that in our system, and it's really important that you let us know when and if this information does change, because we need to make sure that what you're invoicing for and the details on your invoice match what we have on file. Otherwise, the invoice will need to be rejected, because what our compliance team does is perform due diligence actions upon the ABN and the business name. So if that's changed and we haven't been notified, that will cause an issue and a delay with payment.
That's right. And we actually claim the GST directly from the government on supplier invoices. So if that GST status is not correct, then that's going to have a resulting issue on financial reporting as well. And we would need to ask for revised invoices. That obviously delays payment as well. So getting that right in the first instance, make sure we can get those bills paid as soon as possible. Zoe, why are we so strict on deadlines and invoice formatting now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with the support at home reform comes new requirements imposed by the government. And so relating to timeframes, it's really important that the timeframes for invoicing set out in your associated provider agreement or your third-party contractor agreements are adhered to. Because for whatever reason, if we lose access to a client's package funding, those timeframes are in there to protect your invoices. So as long as you're invoicing a compliant invoice within those timeframes, you'll be able to be paid for those services, even if the client is terminating.
Zoe, our suppliers have always invoiced the same way. They might have been providing services through home care packages for a number of years. Do they really need to change the way that they do things?
Yeah, unfortunately we do, and you're not alone. We totally hear you in the confusion and the apprehension of all the changes. We're all in this together. So, Trilogy Care is putting together a load of resources, and you would have received a lot of our emails over the past 6 months just educating and providing information on the changes. So we'll continue to be there to support you through those changes. All approved providers are required to adhere to these changes. So, yeah.
So our focus now is obviously on giving you those resources and the information so that we can get ahead of these changes and minimize the disruption to payments or suppliers running their businesses. We know how important it is for you to get those payments on time every time. So we will definitely work with you to make sure that we're hitting those standards and everything's compliant and able to be paid. Zoe, how is Trilogy Care supporting suppliers?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of communication leading up to the Support at Home program and just through the past month in that transition period. So what we're going to do now is dive a little bit deeper in this video series. We're going to tackle a few really important key points and address those in each video so that you guys have all the information that you need to run your businesses and get paid.
And we will be posting a centralized supplier resource hub on our website full of materials to help suppliers refer back to what a good invoice looks like, the checklist for compliance to make sure that invoice can be paid as soon as possible on submission. Zoe, what are your final 5 tips for our suppliers?
Yeah, so I would say definitely make sure that your ABN and your GST status on your invoices matches what we have on file, as that will cause a delay if it's not. Number 2, I would say double check that the client's name is correct and that you have the first and last name there. And if you do have the address, include that one as well. 3, invoice your service types. And that's probably the key takeaway from this video, I would say, is making sure you do not bundle the services, even if they're occurring in the same shift. 4, do not bill independently for travel to and from. So like Erin was explaining before, just make sure that those sort of travel costs are built into your hourly rate and they're not invoiced separately. And the last one would be just to refer to the invoice checklist before submitting your invoice. So that resource will be available, like Erin said, on our page. So you can take that one, download it, print it as you need, and just refer to that before you submit an invoice, and that'll make sure you get paid as quick as possible.
Thanks, Zoe. With that information, hopefully our suppliers are at the beginning of being better placed and educated for what good looks like under the Support at Home program. We know it's confusing. We know it's a lot of additional information. It is for us as well, and also for our clients, who are the reason that we're all here. So any more questions, send them through. We're doing a whole series on this confusion to clarity for Support at Home, and we're happy to address any emerging issues that you're experiencing out there on the front line.
Perfect. Thank you, Erin.